He wishes to know your name. I am Ahmed ibn Fahalan ibn Al-Abbas ibn Rashid. I'm Liam, he's Rob, and welcome to the third part of our box office bomb season of podcasts. This week, we look back at what, according to some calculations, might be the biggest box office bomb of them all, John McTiernan's historical dark fantasy epic, The 13th Warrior. Despite making more than 60 million at the global box office, its surprisingly large initial budget of 85 million soon ballooned to well north of 150 million after a year's worth of delays, a major recut of the movie by producer Michael Crichton, a change of composer, and a number of expensive reshoots. Still, despite its lackluster box office, lukewarm critical reception, and utter mauling by supporting actor Omar Sharif, it turns out that The 13th Warrior is rather good, actually. Now, Rob, I've mentioned this before when covering some of his other movies, but I don't think there is another director with as high a ceiling and as low a floor as John McTiernan. From the outrageous highs of Die Hard and Predator to the ludicrous low of the truly horrible 2002 Rollerball remake, really, if you haven't seen it, it's worth giving that film like 20 minutes just for the realization that this is the same guy who made Predator and Die Hard. His output, needless to say, is mixed at best. But honestly, on the Rollerball to Predator scale, I'd put The 13th Warrior much closer to Predator. It's far from a perfect movie, and you can definitely see the impact of the reshoots, but despite its faults and its, tonal inconsistencies, which is a pretty consistent problem throughout the movie, I thoroughly enjoyed this rewatch. Were you, I'm not sure if you're a fan originally, or because straight up, I saw this film in 2000 and I could hardly remember it other than the famous, language scene. But a lot of this film was almost like watching it for the first time.
Yeah, I was a fan of this film. I remember just having fun with it being all right. Like I said last week, for some reason that quote just stuck with me about can I give it to me daughter.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I enjoyed this film, and to be fair, this was a very fun rewatch. There's problems with it, obviously, but if you just stick with what's on screen, it's not bad. And yet behind the scenes, it was a fucking disaster. I get that. Omar Sharif, not the biggest fan. I get that.
Yeah, sorry. So just while you bring that up, I think we've mentioned that twice now. This is his quote. After my small role in The 13th Warrior, I said to myself, let us stop this nonsense. These meal tickets that we do because it pays well. I thought, unless I find a stupendous film that I love and that makes me want to leave home, I will have to stop. Bad pictures are very humiliating. I was really sick. It is terrifying to have to do the dialogue from bad scripts, to face a director who does not know what he is doing in a film so bad that it's not even worth exploring. Now, I think that's incredibly harsh for this movie.
Considering he was in the beginning of the
film. He has about 3.5 minutes of screen time. He's like, I'm tearing this motherfucker down.
Do you know what probably put it off? Was that the whole sharing the bowl of water fucking thing.
I mean, I'm not a germaphobe, but I'd like to stay clean, and seeing that sequence did make me feel slightly nauseous.
Can you imagine your group of friends? You've gone out for a stag night or something. You've got a bowl of water. Mm-hmm. I started it off because I ain't fucking being halfway through. I've had a drink of it. I've spat back into it. I've given it to somebody else
as well.
I've given it to somebody else. And by the time it gets to you, they've snorted in it. They've spat in it.
And everyone's hungover from the night before. So it's going to be especially gross. I mean, I don't know how historically accurate this is. That was. But that's almost like the point of the movie. And I'm not sure if it's something that you're aware of, because obviously you have a longer history with this movie. I wasn't even aware that this was a Beowulf remake, ostensibly. I mentioned the Antonio Banderas' name in this, Ahmed ibn Fahalan. That's a real guy. This is a 10th century Arab traveler famous for accounts of his travels with the time of the Volga Bulgars and the Vikings and all that jazz. It's he's a real guy, and they've Michael Crichton but I didn't even know it was based on a book, Eaters of the Dead by Michael Crichton, who's the producer on this film, who's basically conflated his story with that of Beowulf to basically tell the story of Ibn, recounting the story of Beowulf, or as he's known in this movie as Bulvai, which is basically a kind of Old English version of Beowulf. So it clearly is Beowulf. And all that passed me by the first time I watched it when I was younger.
It's like a weird third person kind of thing, because it's like Ahmed's, because Bullerwolf says you'll only be a legend or a king in the eyes of somebody if they write your story.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like you're watching the story that Ahmed writ about.
And it's
Like
weird. One of the issues
yeah,
with this film is it doesn't like sell the structure clearly enough. Once you get to
no,
the end, you get this idea. Oh, it's like he's telling the story, and he's basically, rather than the movie happening, it's almost like a retelling of the story from his perspective, and it just isn't sold at the start of the movie at all. You think like usually there'd be that kind of clear bookend, no pun intended, structure where it's like, oh, he's telling the story, and at the end it's almost like the closing of the book. And it makes it quite conceptually interesting, this idea that we'll call him Ibn, like the Vikings do for the rest of the film.
little brother.
Little brother, Ibn, little brother, whatever. It's like the story follows him, but of course the actual hero of the story is Bulvi or Beowulf.
Yeah.
But of course that isn't made clear because, I think it comes back to the reshoots, the re-edits and everything, is that this film fundamentally feels like a bit of a mess. It's kind of pulling you in two different directions and never really settles on a tone or a storytelling technique.
It was like they decided to get rid of the narrative structure and just give you these set pieces, but then these set pieces can't be big epic set pieces because of the location, because of where they are. You can't have a big epic set piece being in a little village. Like, because the thing about the Vikings, they were all kings, but they were all kings of their little village.
Like, so Hrothgar in this film when they go to visit his settlements, I
could be a king of Killian Close. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So you can't have these epic grand scale, these battles. I mean, the biggest thing is when you see the fireworm, and I've obviously been right to the end.
No, that's the biggest battle. Yeah,
that is but that's the problem, because once you get the promise of the bigger battle, it's done. You have that epic poem
over, don't you? Yeah,
yeah, but you have that epic poem. The Bullerwolf recites the warrior's prayer, and then it's over as soon as the leader's taken out. The rest of them run away. So you're getting this epic battle promise at the end, and it just doesn't happen. So I think that's a bit lackluster. But overall, I think, yes, the narrative structure is a bit off, but I still think it's a fun film. Antonio Banderas is doing some good work in this. He's leading his fucking Herger, whatever you want to call it.
He's great.
Okay. He is fantastic. Why that guy didn't do more Western stuff, I don't know.
Dennis,
like English language.
Dennis Storhoy. I think he borderline steals the film. Don't get me wrong. I think Vladimir Kulich as Bulvi is actually like, he has that physical presence, and you buy him as the leader of men, and it's always quite weird because you're vaguely aware that he's the hero of the story, but he's always sitting in the background. Of the Vikings, the one you spend the most time with, the one you're encouraged to get attached to, is without question Herger, and I think he does steal the film.
Where have you seen, you just said his name then, Bullerwolf from?
Vladimir Kulich. He's one of those guys, man. He's been in a whole bunch of movies in small roles, and I cannot remember any of them. I did look this up.
Yeah. He was the Swede, the doctor in Smoking Aces, the one who was going to get the heart. And obviously he was in Vikings, but he was also in The Equalizer as one of the Russians, the original.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I always confuse him with the other Swede with blonde hair. Is it Mads? I can't even think of his name right now.
Mads Mikkelsen.
Not Mads Mikkelsen, sorry, no. I'm gonna find it and then I'll let you know, and you'll know who I'm on about. But you
that's the thing. It's when you're watching this film, you mentioned the fact that it feels like a number of like battles, and it's almost like kind of diminishing returns, because the vast majority of it, once they get off the boat and they land at Hrothgar's settlement, it's like, other than the infiltration of the cannibals or the Vendels kind of camp, it feels like, well, you just keep getting the same battle, and you can really feel at that point the kind of diverging visions of both McTiernan as the director and Crichton, who wrote the book but was the producer on this film. And you can see the fact that, like, after basically filming was complete, they did a bunch of test screenings. The test screenings didn't go particularly well, and they both ended up editing ostensibly two different movies. So you've got like McTiernan directing a dark, gritty horror movie, which comes through quite often in this film.
Yeah.
And then you've got Crichton like editing this kind of polished action movie. He's really pushing the mythology and all these other things, and you see both sides in the final cut, and the movie still kind of works. But I mean, for my money, I wish they kind of leaned more towards the McTiernan end of the spectrum, because I think this movie is most effective.
It's better off as ostensibly a dark horror action.
being a dark horror.
Absolutely. Yeah.
what ends up happening, because it doesn't feel like this big epic, or it doesn't feel like this dark, gritty horror. It ends up essentially feeling, I saw somebody describe it as a Scandi Western. Like, structurally, there's more than a hint of the Seven Samurai and the Magnificent
It's
Seven.
Magnificent Seven, yeah. I actually
really
wrote it down, the Magnificent 13.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
basically, yeah, it is. Sorry to go back, but I always confuse Vladimir Kulik, Beowulf, with Matthias Hughes, a big blonde 7 foot, Swede. But we know Matthias Hughes on this podcast as the drug dealing alien in Dark Angel. Remember that?
Yeah. He does have a similar vibe, no doubt about it. Yeah, 100%.
Oh, like, I mean, I've known him from like No Retreat, No Surrender 2.
Of course.
Puppet Master, The Littlest Reich. These are
The Littlest Reich. That's
The Littlest Reich. Yeah,
unbelievable.
So The Littlest Reich, I'm going so off kilt, but I always do. The Littlest Reich they tried to do a remake, but it's you know the guy as well. It's Thomas Lennon, who is famous for being the lead of Reno 911.
Oh God, I have a vague recollection of that being a thing, but
yeah,
every so often you go too far down the rabbit hole, and I just can't follow. I just can't follow. I'm trying to talk about Antonio Banderas, and you're talking about Reno 911, and I'm just like, how the hell did we get here so early in the podcast as well?
Sorry.
No.
My brain just has these, like, it's that Batman quote, isn't it, from The Flash, where time isn't linear, it's spaghetti, and that's my brain at the moment. It's just spaghetti.
Bizarre 80s B-movie references and characters nobody can remember. But speaking of Banderas, I think his goodness.
Nice segue.
Yeah, I think like we've had an issue, obviously, covering Cutthroat Island and Waterworld before this. The one thing you can't escape is the impact that these movies have had on their leading men, leading ladies in terms of their box office potential down the line. I think there's a similar story here with Banderas, because he was coming off Desperado, Assassins, which people forget about. That was a big hit, the one with him and Sylvester Stallone, and The Mask of Zorro, and Mask of Zorro was obviously a massive hit. And he did this, which was just kind of really did fall by the wayside. And, another one of those movies where it's more famous for being a box office bomb than being a movie. It's like, I feel like most people haven't seen The 13th Warrior. A lot of people who have relatively fond memories of it, or, rate it relatively highly. It's become a cult classic for a reason, because it is, generally speaking, a flawed but very watchable movie. But it's just more famous for it's just a box office bomb. And it's like, sometimes you can get away with that, similar to, obviously, Kevin Costner was coming off this amazing run, and if it had just been Westworld, he might have got away with it. But of course, The Postman came 2 years later, and that kind of did for him.
Yeah,
and with Antonio Banderas, he was coming off a hot enough run where you think, oh, you might have got away with this, especially when you know that the production was a mess, and it wasn't like anyone was watching this and going, well, fucking Antonio Banderas ain't shit. It's just one of those things. But then in 2002, just a couple of years later, he ends up doing X versus Sever, which is generally considered to be one of the
worst films.
Films. I mean, it literally has a 0% on Rotten Tomato. Just before you move on, I have to ask.
No, I'm not trying to move on. I have seen X versus Sever.
Oh, yeah, I just had to find out. I just assumed you had,
Yeah. No, so I kind of don't agree with you on that. You can't put him and Costner together in this. I don't think this... No, what I mean is, I don't think this hurt his career as a box office draw, because I don't think he was a box office draw. He's a great actor. I love Banderas. I love Desperados. Assassins is great. He's done a bunch of things, but he's not the box office. Like, he was just starting. The Mask of Zorro came out.
Mask of Zorro was huge, though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And that was 98. And his star is starting to rise. And then, yes, he goes and does The 13th Warrior. But I don't think it impacted him. I just think the choices.
How many like genuinely big budget leading roles did he have after?
Was he offered them? Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I don't.
The next year he does Spy Kids, and Spy Kids is fucking massive because.
Yeah, but it's not because
it's not
him,
his.
Though.
I get it, but he also 1999 he did a film I don't know if you're aware of called Play It to the Bone. Do you know that, with Woody Harrelson, where they're two aging boxers? Fucking fantastic movie. The same year that this comes out, and that should have been a big hit. I'm wondering if that had an impact.
Well, I think it's a combination. I think, with this, and you suddenly have X versus Sever, which completely bombs. And I just think if you look at his IMDb after that, obviously he's done fine. He's done fine. He was Puss in Boots and all these other things. But I think he had that run from like 95 through 2000 when they were just like, oh, this guy's a leading man. This is the guy. This being a point example. This is a big budget movie. He's going to be on the poster. It's going to be his name on the top. It's an Antonio Banderas movie. After this and X versus Sever, I think that just went away.
Well, no, X versus Sever, I'll give you. X versus Sever is what put the nail into it.
Yeah,
but
that's what I mean. Yeah.
I don't think this was I don't think this burnt him as much as it burnt John McTiernan coming out of this. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it burnt. He did it fine. You move on, and I think he moved on, and he just chose some smaller roles. I don't think he just so happened after being a leading man for 5 years after a double box office kind of bomb situation where he's like, I'm just going to choose some smaller roles. I'm like, I think they were chosen for you. You can't call her a double box office bomb situation when there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 films in between those two films.
Yeah, but how many of those was he the leading man? I'm just like it's not like a perfect line thing.
2, 3, 4, probably. I mean, take the two Spy Kids out of it because he's not the leading man in that. Yeah, he's probably the leading man in at least 4 of them. Yeah, 5 of them.
But I just think, well, I assume that those weren't maybe big. I just think a lot of these actors, and you see it all the time, you saw it with, what's his name from Avatar? Sam Worthington. There was the other guy, see, I'm forgetting all the fucking names now. The guy who did, he was the Viking guy in the TV show, and he did Battleships, and he was John Carter.
Right, you're confusing two people there. You're confusing Travis Fimmel, who was in Vikings.
Yeah, was he the one who played John Carter and he was in
No, that was Taylor something or other.
Taylor Taylor something or other. That's what I'm thinking of. You get these guys, they're like, oh, you're going to be the next like big Hollywood guy. And you have like 2 or 3 movies, and if it doesn't quite work out, you're suddenly kind of pushed into the background. That didn't quite happen with Banderas. Taylor Kitsch, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I think all it takes is like a couple of flops. It's just like, well, that's it. And I think these probably did have a pretty big impact on Banderas.
I mean, Taylor Kitsch is definitely one of those that I agree with you on because yes, he did Battleship or John Carter and then Battleship or whichever way around.
Oh, so it was just combo.
It like an absolute terrible combo. Well, actually, same year. John Carter and Battleship come out in 2012. Both of them 2012.
Yeah.
So after they both come out, and you're looking at this guy going, yeah, okay, maybe he's not.
And it's a shame because he's quite good.
But, I mean, just before that, he was Gambit in X-Men Origins Wolverine. This guy's not having a good time. He's not having a good time.
And like it happens, kind of thing. And it's like sometimes you just get your shot as a leading man, and that's the end of it. But whatever the case, it's like if you go back and watch this film, with like unequivocally, Antonio Banderas isn't the problem. And again, it's cool. Like it's actually really progressive. You can tell this was like filmed like pre 9/11 because the idea of a Muslim hero, like which you take for granted when you kind of grew up with this film, whatever. But you watch it now and you're just like, oh yeah, how many Hollywood blockbusters have like an openly clear Muslim hero? Fucking none.
Does this film kind of have issues now as well with the whole give an Arab this or give an Arab that? And like. The whole thing in that film, you give an Arab this and he does that. You give an Arab I don't know if that's gonna fly now.
The thing is, I was thinking from the other perspective, like in terms of like if you're watching this as someone from the Middle East, from Baghdad, whatever, it's like we always think of like whitewashing, for instance. We always say, oh, it's like you take character, you whitewash them. Is like Spanish washing a thing? Like, because like he's like just Spanish as fuck in this film. So like when I was doing the intro, I was like, I sound too Middle Eastern because he does this like he was just like, I'm just gonna play this Spanish. He plays the Spanish.
He's a late 90s, early 2000s Lou Diamond Phillips. Do you know?
Yeah.
If you need an Indian, Lou Diamond Phillips. If you need a Mexican, Lou Diamond Phillips. If you need an Arab, Lou Diamond Phillips. And it's the same now. If you want an Eastern European, if you need an Eastern European, Peter Stormare. It doesn't matter where he's from, Peter Stormare. So I think that's what they was. Oh, he'll be fine. He's a Mexican last year. He can be an Arab this year. Nobody is going to question it. It's fine. Nobody's going to question it. I loved as well. What I have to ask, because actually getting into the film. Did you enjoy the battle scenes? Or did you think,
my biggest
to begin with, they were too dark? Like the first one where they're all pretending to sleep and they're all doing snoring noises with their eyes wide open. It's the creepiest thing I've ever seen.
Conceptually clever, but my issue with the film isn't so much like, because like you said, you're basically in one location. So you start off with him, they have the very rushed intro and then suddenly get to Hrothgar's settlement. And other than the brief excursions into the forest, for the most part, you're having a lot of battles there. I think conceptually they do a good job of making the battles feel different. My big issue, and like the first battle actually gets away with this, because the whole idea that the Wendell, you're sending them that they might be monsters, that these half bears things, so you almost don't want to see them because you're keeping that element of mystery there. Are these monsters or are these just men? But after that, my biggest issue that runs throughout the film is that they're constructed quite well, the action sequences, but they're choreographed terribly.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Yeah. There's just a lot of swinging your sword up, and you can't see. There's no. I didn't even see him kill any of the bears in the first, the bears in quotes, in the first battle. It's just a lot of swinging and shouting, and then all of a sudden, Ahmed is on the floor, and they go, "Oh, I found him. He's still alive. It's fine." But our two friends have lost their heads. It's insane.
Which, I'm not sure about that whole, like, if they are indeed, which we find out they are, they're just cannibals, they're just men. How one of them is ripping a dude's head off. I'm like, one, it came as a shock, because I can remember how sporadically violent this movie was, which again annoyed me, the whole kind of tonal inconsistencies, that every so often this movie gets very violent, but it's only on occasion. And for the rest of the film, it's just kind of a bit of a slightly wishy-washy action film. To bring it back to that opening kind of big action scene against the Wendells, and that is correct, isn't it? Because like in Beowulf, Wendell is the monster, but I think Wendell is kind of the catch-all for the people, the kind of cannibals in this film. Apologies if I'm getting that wrong. But when they're having that first fight with them, I was much more forgiving, because it was all about kind of hiding their identity and kind of, adding that sense of panic. And then, having that sudden moment of extreme violence. I was like, okay, that's quite impactful. For the bigger, more traditional action sequences, so by then you know what you're up against. It's just dudes against dudes with bear heads. And how many fucking bears they killing for all those hats, I don't know, but whatever.
And the fact
it just becomes very messy. Sorry.
Bear heads at least have to weigh 20 kilograms.
Yeah, it's a bear head.
So you've got to kill hundreds of bears. Like, it's like when the Americans settled in America. You know what I'm
when
trying
the Americans famously settled in America. When the Europeans settled in America.
Yes, thank you. And all of a sudden, the buffalo are gone. Yeah, we just hunted them. It's like they've hunted all the bears. They're easier
to hunt. Like,
but what I'm saying is, how many bears are there to hunt them all? Because there's hundreds and hundreds of Wendells. There's hundreds of them. The other thing I wanted to say,
it's just a shame because, like you said, because they're all wearing the same thing, it makes them aesthetically very samey, which fine to a certain extent. But even like the boss guy, as they kind of stress, like, oh, he's the leader of them.
The only way I knew he was the boss guy is because every time they mentioned boss, it showed him.
Yeah, and the other issue was he was more handsome than the rest of them. Like, everyone else looked like a bit of a mutant. I was just like, for a cannibal who lives in the caves and wears a fucking bear hat, that one dude looks a little bit too handsome.
And they've all got perfect teeth.
Yeah, they've also got perfect teeth.
Their dental plan in the cave is fantastic.
Surprisingly decent.
The other thing I wanted to mention as well is I think 13 is too much when you have this, and I'm going to say it again, narrative structure. Mm-hmm. The way the film came to us is 13 warriors too many when we're meant to know them? Because aside from Tony Curran, who I know anyway, he's a Scotsman. He's not even trying to hide his accent. Fine.
Same as Clive Russell as Halfdane. Like, he's just very Scottish as well.
Yeah. The rest of them, I didn't even know they had their own little subgenres of their names. So I'm not going to go through all 13, but you've got like Bullet Wolf was the leader, obviously. We just mentioned him as well. Hager was the joyous, Tony Curran was Weath, the musician.
Yeah.
Rethel was the okay, we knew he was the archer. He kept fucking holding his bow. Roneth the rider, Helga the wise, Halfdane, who you just said Clive Russell, fat. Edco silent. Haltaft the boy. Like, we didn't even get the, and
it's just no. I was exactly same. It was only when
King's son. Look, so the King's son came with them, the one who previously died. But what? Couldn't we have got more from him? My dad just died. I'm coming with you now. You're the new King Bullerwolf or Beowulf, whatever the fuck you want to call him. It's
Bulvar,
fucking insane.
But no, I 100% agree. When I was looking at the names, because of course I can remember all the names, because like you said, there are too many of them. They don't get enough screen time. I was like, I can't remember any of their names. And I was seeing two names. I was like, what's with this two name shit? That does not come across in the film at all. And you can always tell, like we've talked about this with other movies, because fundamentally at least half of this film is structured like a horror almost, isn't it? It's like, when you think about like the attack on the infiltration of the cannibal layer at the end, it has a hint of Bone Tomahawk, in terms of the first half feels like a western, the first half of this feels like a Scandi western, and then suddenly it becomes a true horror in the second half of the film. It obviously never goes that far, but if you're making a film like that, what makes the best of them work is by delivering genuinely memorable characters, allowing them to have their moments so that when they die, you remember it. And we think back to Aliens, we think back to John McTiernan's Predator, you remember every single character, you remember every single death, and it has an impact. Going back to that first attack on the settlements, which is filmed somewhat clumsily, but I only found out afterwards, like, I think it's Higlak and Ragnar die in that attack. And I'm just, I don't even know which ones they are. They're just Scandinavian guys. Unless they've got a Scottish accent, that's the only thing which makes them stand out. So they died, and I was just like, okay, I guess, but you just never treat, like, basically, I found that by the end of the film, I gave a shit about three people. I gave a shit about Ibn, Antonio Banderas, Bolvai, obviously Vladimir Kulich, and the aforementioned Herger, played by Dan Strawhide. Yeah. The rest of them, sure, like Tony Curran and Clive Russell, they get your attention because they have Scottish accents, and they're fine, but 7 or 8 of them, they might as well not be there.
The other one I didn't mind was, I guess, is Roneth, the rider.
Yeah.
He had a bit, like, he's the guy that's hiding in the bushes. He's the instead of being on the watchtower, he's the guy that notices everybody around him. He's the tracker. He's basically your Legolas.
And he's not bad. And a lot of them
he's not bad. But
they
he
just
doesn't
don't
get
get
anything to do.
Time.
They don't get anything to do. The other thing that doesn't get too much screen time is this whole thing about these 13 warriors have come over to help us, but I'm a spoiled, arrogant king's son that I don't want him here and I want to take over. But you don't get any of that. You get the weird blonde guy talking to, I don't know, fucking Duncan the Tall, because I've just watched Night in the Seven Kingdoms, Ginger Duncan the Tall. Yeah. They have that weird battle of the shields.
Goes nowhere.
Kills him. Yeah, absolutely. What
you're talking about is the king's son Wiglaf, who it's kind of suggested very briefly.
Is that Wiglaf?
Wiglaf, yeah, that he killed his brothers, so he'd be kind of next in line for Hrothgar's kind of absolute fucking shithole of a kingdom. It's all right, fair enough. But even when they kind of set up like the battle between our favourites, Viking and
Herger the Joyous.
Herger the Joyous, and I don't know who the other guy is. Is he just Wiglaf's like friend? Because he's not Hrothgar's son, so he's just kind of fighting on his behalf. So they have the fight, and I'm sure, it's cool because you have the whole moment with Herger when he's playing him along, and then he kills him and makes a scene. I'm like, that's cool, but it has no impact on the story. And maybe you can correct me here. I have no idea what happens to Wiglaf after that. What happens to his son?
It's the last time you see him. He fucks up.
I just wanted to make sure, because I was just like, no, man, I must have fucking left the room. No, I must have missed something.
He's not in the battle. You've got women throwing spears at fucking the Wendells. You've got another woman with knives ready to kill all the kids if it needs to go that far, which is dark, but I get it. And then you don't see this guy. Like, is he cowering in the corner? It's
I think it's just one of those examples of just, certain things suffered greater than others in terms of that re-edit, in terms of reshoots. And I am like convinced, for instance, like it's hard to kind of make out as you go through the film exactly what was McTiernan and what's been reshot afterwards. I'm convinced though that the beginning and the end, which I think are the two clumsiest bits of the film by a million miles, are both Crichton. I'm convinced that because obviously, like I mentioned, I hadn't seen this film for ages, so I put it on, and the first thing you see is a horrible opening shot of Baghdad.
I thought it was my copy. I thought it was my copy. Dude,
it's rough, right?
Awful, yeah.
So bad. And you see a soft focus shot of the noble's wife, who Ibn supposedly rattling. And I was just like, man, I remember this film being good. It looks fucking terrible. And the ending feels really clumsy, the way it's shot, the way it's structured. I am convinced they were both done by Crichton. And like I can't say definitively, but I suspect that the McTiernan cut of this film is a lot more successful. It's just it makes more sense. It gives more time to the characters because he wanted to make a kind of smaller film in terms of, all right, this is going to be dark, it's going to be gritty, it's going to be about these Vikings on this journey. And every time Crichton takes control, he's pushing the camera out. And don't get me wrong, this film is absolutely gorgeous. Like the cinematography by Peter Menzies Jr., who you probably know from Died with a Vengeance, sadly, Gods of Egypt.
Yeah.
And I know one of your favorites, Hard Rain. He was the cinematographer on that. He does it. Yeah. He does a great job in this film. Like this is a handsome...
bless him. So you've called that, and you've called just another film that nobody liked.
Nobody liked. But hey, man, Die with a Vengeance is a great look. You know, we said on... We covered Die Hard with a Vengeance on the podcast maybe about a year ago. And I think we both agreed that for an hour, that might actually be the best Die Hard. Like the first hour of Die with a Vengeance is so fucking good. It's just it totally goes off the rail in the second half, but the first half is legit amazing. So he's done some great work. He's done some not so great work. This comes under great work. This is a gorgeous looking film with terrible shots at the beginning and end, which I'm sure are down to Crichton. But for the most part, you know, and even when it's not quite nailing it, like you said, with the characterization, with the clumsy choreography, you always feel like you're like a stone's throw away from the film you want it to be, which is somewhat infuriating because I genuinely think that there is a legitimately fantastic movie in here, that they were so close to making a genuinely brilliant film.
I'm going to upset you now. Die Hard with a Vengeance was 2 years ago.
Was it 2? Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
The recording rather than the release. When was it released? Was it 95?
It was 95, yeah.
But
our recording was released. But no, I agree with you.
Sorry, I was just going to mention, you can see that the same inconsistencies with the score, because originally it was going to be Graham Revell. Well, Graham Revell did score this entire film, and then Crichton brought in Jerry Goldsmith, and for the most part, the movie just about gets away with it. But every so often, you have like the sequence when they're the infiltration of the lair. There's the scene with the waterfall, and suddenly the score just sounds like Star Trek. And of course, it's because Jerry Goldsmith has scored a lot of Star Trek films, including the motion picture. And I was just like, this feels like a completely different film now. A completely different film, and for good reason.
Right, go back a sec. Sorry, I agree with you about how it looked, though. I think the beginning of it looked shit. To be fair,
opening shot was horrible.
The rest of it, I think, looked great. The sweeping camera angles of like the hills and everything. When for some reason kids seem to just like running up those hills when everything's locked down. That's twice that there's a random kid just out in the fucking field.
Yeah, it'd be acceptable if it was once, but like as a plot device, it happens twice. Like the first time you accept it, it's like, oh, he's running from one of the smaller settlements in the woods, and that's how they know about it because he's escaped and everyone else is dying, which is a great sequence, by the way. But the fact that they kind of go back to the well again, you're just like, really, this the same thing? Okay, whatever.
But I like the practical sets as well. As we've said before, practical was always better. The practical sets are great, you know. The themes as well of this film, the whole culture clash thing, where you've got the Arabs, and he said everything in my world is beautiful, you know, everything is great, and even to the point where apparently, even though most of the guys are his size, he's not strong enough to lift these swords. He's fucking bigger than Tony Curran. You know, but they're playing it off. But
I buy into that whole thing. If you're not,
I'm saying I do buy into it, and the sword thing, but then all of a sudden he becomes this reluctant warrior. Like he said, I'm just a poet.
Yeah, he says he's not a warrior.
But he can swing that fucking scimitar.
Yeah, he's clearly a warrior.
Can I ask as well? They did it really quickly. Like it's going to take days to turn that sword into another sword.
But he forges it and grinds it in. Like
I get that, but also there's not enough on there to give it that curve.
There's not. No, it doesn't make any sense at all. I watch a lot of Forged in Fire. So if you're watching that show, you're watching this and going like, wait, how quick? And you're just like, there's just not enough there. You'd have to reforge it and like push the iron. So it's just like, this isn't happening with him just kind of going up, taking off his jacket and putting his fucking shoulder into it. It's like, dude, this isn't happening. But my major issue is exactly what you said there, where he makes it clear, oh, I'm not a fighter, I'm not a warrior. But as soon as he gets that sword, it's just like, you look like a warrior to me. You look pretty badass.
I understood. Okay, I'm not a fighter. That's fine. I can swing a sword and you know make it sharp. I've proved my point. But then when he does the fucking acrobatic routine with that sword and says at the end like it'll do, like you're not a warrior. Fuck you.
Yeah,
because what you just did, no poet is doing, like, at
no.
all.
No, it's nonsense, and you do have to accept a few bits of nonsense in this film.
Yeah,
Like this film is actually probably most famous, bizarrely, for a sequence in which he learns the language. That's the scene everyone remembers
I
from the
wanted
start.
to bring that up. I think that is fucking ridiculous.
Right, I know it's ridiculous, but it's a great way of taking the viewer on that journey. The only thing everyone seems to have forgotten is that earlier in the film, beyond the fact that the accents are absolutely mental, like the fact that once everyone is ostensibly, we're just accepting that everyone's speaking Swedish, it's like you have Antonio Banderas, who's supposed to be Muslim but sounds Spanish. You have quite a few of the Scandinavians who actually sound Scandinavian. Some of them just sound Scottish. You're like, all right, fine. But even the language stuff at the start is super confusing. So when they go and meet the Tatar raiders, the Vikings, and there's the whole like he's been vanished to the Bulgars, which is probably quite confusing when you're watching this film. You're like, wait, why is he with the Vikings? Why is he just accepting everything? We just go with it, whatever. But when he's with, I think the character's called Melchizedek, Omar Sharif's character.
Yeah,
So when they're conversing with the Vikings initially, the Norseman and Omar Sharif, they're both just by chance speaking Greek. I don't think that's
yeah.
made clear. It's being translated into Swedish and English, only the English is actually Arabic. The whole structure of it is absolutely bonkers when you stop and think about it. But then, of course, when you have that famous sequence when they're sitting around the fire, I'm not sure if it actually makes sense that you could just listen and just pick up the language.
No,
Of
you're not
course,
going to, because
they're speeding it up.
there's no way in hell. I mean, correct me, maybe I'm wrong, because obviously you have to learn a new language somehow. Throughout the years, people have learned to speak different
Yeah,
languages.
yeah, yeah.
Fucking yeah. So if he had a reference point, I guess that they kept pointing to like fire and saying the word fire, and
Mhm.
he got this like, but it didn't seem like there was any reference point or anything like that. I just got it by listening and watching your mouth. No, how are you getting the nuances of everything as well? Where they're calling his mother a whore and they're doing all this, and like
Mhm.
you're not getting those
No, of course
nuances.
not. And
Yeah, and I
being
get
able to
it.
kind of learn the language
From,
via that kind
I
of
mean,
limited context.
this is a world, where the Vikings have accepted, Arabs into their fucking camp and everything, and then they've sailed away back to fucking Sweden or wherever they're going to protect others from a supposed monster. So you've got to take a lot, all of it with a pinch of salt. But it just, I wasn't a fan of that scene. I think it
Oh,
was
see,
too
I
dark as
think
well.
it's fantastic sequence. I know, like I totally get it, especially for Rob's take. It's called Rob's take for a reason that you can pick holes in it without issue. But I like the idea of them kind of like at least explaining how he's learned the language, so you as a
Oh,
viewer can
I
just
get
quickly get
that.
on board with
Yeah,
everybody's just speaking English. And other movies have stolen it since. Yeah, it's an imperfect system for
no,
sure, but
I
for the
get
sake
it.
of
I
a
mean,
96-minute movie, it's like it's fun. It's perfectly suitable.
I get that, and I like when films do that, where
Hmm.
they bring you into the film.
Hmm.
We're not speaking English; we're
Yeah, yeah.
speaking Scandinavian,
Hmm.
but it's English for you, and we'll show you how now you're speaking. It's the same with Hunt for Red October. They were
Hmm.
speaking Russian, the camera pans around, and it's the Russian turns into
Yeah,
English.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
But they
it's the
have to
same kind of,
explain. Yeah, but they've got a
yeah,
guy speaking a
I
different
get, yeah,
language. Yeah.
but I get that, and I think it's good. I think that scene was clumsy. I think it was shot terribly. I just
Oh,
wasn't a fan of that
really?
scene.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
didn't
thought it was
like
a
it. I
fantastic
think it was too
sequence.
dark. I wasn't a fan of it at all.
Oh, see, I have an issue with the scene after when they're on the boat, for instance. That feels like it comes out of nowhere. I think it's one of the ugliest sequences in the film. There's clearly the use of some special effects. I don't think it holds up particularly well. I had an issue with that. I actually thought the scene around the campfire with him learning the language is actually pretty novel, if truth be told.
Yeah.
And it's one I remember quite fondly, and I still think it holds up. But I totally get it, each their own. But that's the thing. It was like, I remembered that, and I remembered like vaguely. I was like, I think they were cannibals and stuff. I was still surprised that I forgot about the whole Beowulf thing because
Are we are we
I
are we going with cannibals? Or why are you going with cannibals?
because
They
they reference cannibals numerous times, and it's based on the book Eaters of Men.
Eaters of the Dead.
Oh, Eaters of the Dead. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
not
but that
eaters
would
of
still make
men.
you.
Yeah, but they're only
That's,
taking the heads. They took the heads, they leave the bodies. If they're cannibals,
I'm
they,
sure
they
they were
take.
cannibals.
Well, that's what I'm questioning though, because they take
Hmm.
the heads, but then you see the heads in the Queen's
Oh yeah,
spiderweb.
yeah. But I think that was
But what I'm
more just
saying,
a kind of.
but if they're cannibals and they're
Mhm.
coming down for food, shouldn't they be taking the bodies?
Well, I think that was more of a battle, I suppose. Yeah, maybe so. Maybe
But it
so.
wasn't a battle, was it? They were there for. they were there for hunting or whatever. They didn't know it was going to be a battle when they got.
Yeah, but that's the thing. All of a sudden, then you can't go just like picking and choosing who you take when you're suddenly in a battle. But listen, I might be wrong. I read it between the title "Eaters of the Dead" and I thought I heard cannibals. I just kind of totally assumed it was cannibals.
I'm probably wrong, but I didn't get the cannibal thing. Obviously, they have to eat something. So if they are eating human. Yeah, long pig.
Anyway, it's besides the point. They're kind of,
no, I get, but
monsters. But
I just the whole. But I don't get their whole existence though as well, like how they came to be. Like
no, it's not.
They haven't been hunting them for years and years and years. It hasn't been a problem for years and years. It seems to have just happened.
Oh no, they did say when they go to so after the little kid shows up on the mountain.
Yeah.
And they go into the hut, and it's a very like hot, like that's one of the most horrific.
Is that the weird witch scene? I couldn't get over it. Just lying on the floor.
It's when they go to the hut and they're looking for the like what happens, why that kid was running off on his own.
Oh yeah.
And they break in, and it's very much like, if nothing else, it's very similar to Predator. So the people are hanging down, like in Predator, and it's shot like a horror film. And I think the specific line is they appear to have been gnawed upon. I think was the line that he used. So maybe I was just taking it off that, but I definitely got the impression that they were nibbling on folk, if nothing else. But then there's the whole thing about they think that they're bears, so maybe they're just like, well, we just do bear shit. I don't know.
When they go into the caves, you're not seeing a store cupboard full of food, are you? So maybe they are. Like, and it's by the by whether or not they're eating anything. I was just intrigued to see.
Well, whatever the case, it's more interesting that as I said, it was based on the sort of Beowulf. It actually follows the narrative very similarly. And I've actually got like a bit of. Do you ever see the Robert Zemeckis 2007 version with Ray Winston?
Yeah, I saw that in cinema. Ugh.
I see you've pulled the face, and I totally get it because a lot of people feel that way. I've got a real soft spot for that film, and I don't know.
Worry.
I think I just like the Beowulf story. I just like the structure. I like the kind of similar to. Sorry, go for it.
You're not going to like my next statement though, because yes, I have a soft spot for a Beowulf story as well, and it's the 2008 Jim Caviezel film Outlander, where it turns out
that's a good one.
A Beowulf is a spaceman.
Yeah, that is different. I totally forgot about that film. That one's quite good as well. I mean, obviously, Beowulf, the 2007 one, really is the truest to the book you can possibly, ever commit.
Well, watching this made me want to watch Outlander again, so I might have to pick that up on the weekend.
Dude, I totally forgot about Outlander. I could totally stand to rewatch it. Maybe I'll be one for the podcast. Who knows?
But maybe then. Maybe I won't watch it on the weekend, and we can pick it at some point.
But yeah, after the first attack on the settlements, obviously they're preparing for the next attack because they know one's in the post. I swear one of the guys in the background was dressed like Santa Claus. You only see him for like a split second, but I'm just like, he looked like he had a red, because there isn't much color in this film. And one dude's just wearing red and he's got the hat, and was just like, was that like a purposeful like little Easter egg? I'm not sure if it would be an Easter egg.
If you want to say Easter egg or cameo or just in the background, Sven Ole Thorson was in this.
Was he really?
Yes. As they're all preparing to leave the camp, and they're hugging all the women and they're saying goodbye, he walks out just with his arm around like a girl's shoulder, just as I was like, fuck me, is that Sven Ole Thorson? Yeah, it is. Obviously, John McTiernan's used him once or twice, so carry on.
Crazy. It's weird, actually. Like, looking back through my notes of this film, and you think, oh, we've got like a lot more to talk about. But then you look at the film, and there is so little meat on the bone. Yeah. Like, there is so little narrative. Like, there's no character development. There's very little plot development. It's like once even at the start, when he shows up and they're doing this initial world building about Ibn and meeting the Volga Vikings and stuff like that. But it's like this crazy old woman shows up. She starts throwing bones, and she's like, "Oh, the 13th one." And let's be clear, that little bone was black. She's like, "Oh, the brown one's got to go."
Yeah,
he doesn't fight back against it at all. He's like, "Oh well, off I fucking go."
I mean, to be fair, can he clearly fight back? Because if he says no, there's going to be issues.
Maybe not, but they don't really kind of cement the relationship between him and the Vikings. It's just kind of there, and then next thing you know, they're on the boat and they're off to Hrothgar's settlement, and and once you get there, it's pretty much non-fucking stop, because, as I said, there's no character development for the other Vikings. You hardly get anything for Antonio Banderas. You get a hint of a love interest, which is just about there It's like just show him a love interest, show them a love interest, and let them fill in the blanks. And you really have to fill in the blanks because all she does is she has the little like scene where she's fixing his wounds and it's cow urine. Oh, we know how I feel about that. Well, you have to get on with it. Oh, let's have sex. Maybe we had sex, and then it's literally a fucking sprint to the finish line.
It's hinting with that love scene as well that he's going to stay.
Yeah, it is.
Like it's hinting, I'm gonna stay and I'm gonna be the foreigner in this land, and again, like fucking Spaceman and Outlander, who spoilers decides to stay at the end of it, but it doesn't, and then he leaves. He leaves with the rider guy and a couple of others, and fucking the Joyous stays.
Yeah, why did he stay?
What did that come from?
Yeah, I do. Like when it ended, beyond the fact that I had like the issue with the way it was shot and the cutaway to him writing the book, I was like, oh, you kind of added that on. It feels clumsy. But when he left on the boat, I was just like, wait, so he's leaving, but he's staying. Are we going to get any explanation as to why we have this split? None. Nothing is explained for the rest of the film, and that goes right to like I said, I do like the fact when they infiltrate the cannibals' lair, but it's literally, you have the fireworm attack. As soon as that finishes, they're like, all right, we should go and attack them. So they go and do it straight away. No fucking around. The whole sequence is cool. They kind of just, so out of nowhere, they're like, oh, well, you've got to kill both the witch or whatever the fucking name is, and you've got to kill the boss. Otherwise, this isn't going to work. And everyone's just like, all right, cool. That sounds legit. So they go there, they kill her. That whole sequence is pretty cool. Bullsye's fucked because she does the little claw thing with the venom. Yeah. You're like, well, we know exactly how this ends. So that happens. As soon as they get back from there, so they killed the witch, you think a moment of respite. No. We are going directly into the final battle. And it was almost like, we want to make this film 97 minutes, but we've edited out so much now. We've only got 94 minutes of footage. Like the issue with the sword. Do we have enough steel? I know what we'll do. We'll shoot the entire finale in slow motion. Wait, so like some of the action is going to be in slow motion? No. The entire final battle sequence is going to be in slow motion.
The best acting of this entire film as well was I want to say Bullerwolf or Beowulf. What are you calling him?
I thought it was pronounced Bulvi.
Bulvi. Okay, that's fine. Because I'm looking at it as Bulri.
Yeah, it's got a weird spelling. So, and again, I apologize if I'm wrong about the
pronunciation. I get it.
I'm wrong about the cannibals. I'm sorry.
I didn't hear Bullerwolf in the film either, so I get it. But there's no N or V or anything, so I'm like, it's really fucking with my mind.
I typed no, because I was the same when I finished watching the film. I was like, I can't remember them saying his fucking name, and I see the spelling. I was just like, is it pronounced Beowulf? I was like, no, if they actually said Beowulf, I would have totally like honed in on it. Yeah. So I typed into Google. I was like, how do you pronounce this? And they were like Bulvi, and I was like, well, it's interesting that it's that name rather than Beowulf, and it specifically said that it's a old English version of Beowulf, so hence the kind of.
So Bulvi, okay. After Bulvi gets nailed, pretty much.
Well, once he gets scrapped and
once he gets nailed, his acting of a dying man who wants to try and swing a sword is fantastic. Like, I'm really feeling I'm even feeling like fucking ill watching him. I'm feeling like fuck me weak and everything, and. Again, I'll go back to it when he sells that warrior's prayer and everyone just stops what they're doing. Like, the fucking guys are there and we've all stopped to do this warrior prayer, but they're fucking like, it's not even like they're coming down the hill anymore. They are there.
Yeah, and he's so like Vladimir Kulich is like one of the secret. We kind of said about Dennis Storhoyer's Herger, but Vladimir Kulich, who gets less to do, but almost has to be, and especially at the end of the film when you really realize what they're going for, is that he's got to be the hero of the film without being the hero of the film, because he's not telling the story. They're telling the story about him, but the emphasis of the story is always on Antonio Banderas. So he's in the background, but so when he has his big hero moment at the end of the film, it really has to land, despite the fact that he's had zero character development and you shouldn't care about him. But because the way he carries himself, the way he looks, everything else, when he comes out, like you say, looking so sick, and he has that heroic moment, you're just like, yeah, that's worthy of writing about. That would become the story. You'd have it been there, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. But what is the story? You're like, it's Bulvi without question. And the way he dies at the end should have been cheesy, where he like sits on like the kind of makeshift chair with the spikes and puts his sword on the floor. I was like, dude, it's badass. It's such a cool way to go.
It was such a good, like the throne. He basically sat himself on a throne to prove who he was.
Great.
I thought it was great.
And it just about made me get over the fact that it was a solid 4 minutes of slow-mo. Because when I realized, I was like, oh, they're not going to stop this. You know, you always think of like Zack Snyder doing slow-mo. He's like most famous for slow motion action sequences. But what he usually does is, it's like, it'll be a slow-mo moment to kind of put an emphasis on the move so you can see it happening. And then the action will speed up again. Then you'll get another slow-mo bit. This isn't Zack Snyder. This is Zack Snyder on crack cocaine.
Yeah.
Just the whole thing is just in slow motion. And because of the way it's structured, it makes it surprisingly effective. And because I think the choreography for the rest of the film, for the action sequences specifically, is so poor, I was just like, at least we're getting something different. And I think that's why I actually prefer the initial attack, because it's shot like a horror film, so the choreography is less important. And because the last sequence is really fundamentally about one person, and it's all in slow motion, again, I'm allowed to kind of go, well, the choreography is just, it is what it is. It's a unique action set piece. The film struggles most when it's selling you on something like Braveheart, and you have hundreds of Wendells attacking the settlement, and it's a more traditional battle sequence. That's when the film falls down compared to some of the other kind of big action movies from like the late 90s, early 2000s. But yeah, it's a strong ending to it. Like I said, you know, what happens afterwards is slightly clumsy, but I love that. I like that.
It is a strong ending. Well, no, actually, the ending has issues. But what I mean is, the Warrior's Prayer is great. You get the weird slow-mo battle. Okay, that's by the by. That could have been better. And then you get the I'm sitting on the throne like a king. Fucking great. And then you get the weird, okay, I'm going to stay, but I don't know why I'm staying. I should have been me staying for love, but okay, I'm going. Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, it was absolutely weird and just quick ending. Like, it just felt really so out of place. Yeah.
No, and like you say, it leads itself to this whole, like, we're going to sprint to the finish, and when we get there, we are going to just keep sprinting. It's just, they won't even have a moment to breathe when they're wrapping this film up. Like you said, it's like, could you just take a moment to explain what everyone's doing? No, he's on a boat, he's staying. That's fine. Oh, just in case it wasn't clear, he was writing a book about this, and, you know, he's retelling. It's like, well, it wasn't particularly clear. Again, it's just another one of those examples of, I think, the clash of, like, that's the biggest problem in this film, is the fact that Michael Crichton and John McTiernan clash so much. My preference, I think I speak for both of us here, is we would have preferred to have seen that, you know, McTiernan win out and kind of deliver on his,
I know, but we also
somewhat
saw
epic scale horror film. But
we also saw a late in career McTiernan full film, as in Rollerball. Well,
yeah, of course, Rollerball is terrible, but I think there's more than enough material here to say that, like, when he was on it, like, McTiernan was still cooking, because you have those sequences in the
I don't know if he was though. I mean, you got Die with a Vengeance, that's great, 95, but then Thomas Crown Affair, 13th Warrior, Rollerball, and Beset. Like, they are not selling me on McTiernan.
Well, Thomas Crown Affair is perfectly decent, and as I said,
it's not really. And before Die with a Vengeance, it was Last Action Hero and Medicine Man. Yeah, like, but this guy has had a weird career.
But none of those films, even if it's not your cup of tea, none of them are like terrible. The only one, like, even Basics, like, the only one, like, that's why
I'd say Thomas Crown Affair is terrible. Like,
yeah, right. If you don't like it, that's completely reasonable. I don't think Thomas Crown Affair belongs anywhere fucking near Rollerball. Rollerball is so much worse than everything else he's done. Rollerball is so incomprehensibly bad. Like, the thing is, I think you can see it up on the screen in this film. Like, it's a gorgeously shot film. I think there are some fantastic sequences. I think even with the problems behind the scene, this is still a good watch, like we've said. I just think if McTiernan had been given full creative control, I think there was, and maybe it wouldn't have been the case. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think there was the potential for this to be a genuinely very good movie.
The problem I had with Rollerball was it made me want
everything.
It made me want more Paul Heyman, because the best thing about that film is Paul Heyman when he's doing his
I'll give you that.
His narration of the games. I think he's fucking fantastic. The rest of it is dog shit. But Paul Heyman on the mic.
If the best thing about your favorite film is Paul Heyman, you've got a problem. But in fairness to you, you are right. Paul Heyman is actually quite good in that film, but it's a tough watch, man. It's such an ugly film as well.
How many times have you seen it?
Oh, once is fine.
No, I've seen it more than once.
Why? Why would you do that?
Well, because it's one of those things that, did I really think that was shit? No, let's try it again.
I have been there before. I have done that to myself. Where I'm just like, maybe I was just in the wrong state of mind. Maybe it's not that bad. And then you go back and go, no, it was a real piece of shit.
Yeah.
In fairness, I'm in that mindset now where if it was just randomly on TV or if it was on Netflix, I would be interested enough to give it like 20 minutes. I'm like, is this as truly as horrendous as I remember? Because I really remember just thinking, I cannot. Firstly, I was just watching it and I was like, I can't believe how bad this is. Then I found out it was directed by John McTiernan. I didn't even know McTiernan directed it when I was watching it. I was like, the dude who directed Die Hard directed this? What the fuck? Anyway, point being.
And then you find out that was the film that sent him to jail.
Yeah, and rightly so. If there's a movie that's essentially to jail, it's Rollerball. And not this. It lost a lot of money, but as you said, good movie in there. Should we move on to favorite scene or Rob's take? Rob's take first.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, we've covered most of them. Really, I said about the bear mask logistics. I didn't understand how because they got to be heavy as fuck.
Yeah.
The weird Viking bath really got to me. All the Wendells having perfect teeth, and the sword that shrinks. Like, so I've pretty much I had 4 Rob takes and I've already used them all before we get to it.
And I've got one myself and we've already covered it. It is ripping heads off with bare hands, no pun intended there. It's just not happening. There's no way you're ripping off a dude's head. It's just ludicrous. And I get it. At that point, the whole idea is you don't know. You still think they might be monsters. So seeing them rip off their head, you're just like, holy shit. But when you find out they're just dudes, you're like, well, that doesn't make sense at all. But anyway, that's my Rob take. Favorite scene? I mean, I could have. I know it's easily probably your least favorite scene by the sounds of things. I could put the language scene. That's the one I remember most. But it's probably the scene in the forest. And it could be the one where they're looking for the old lady to tell them what to do. The convenient, old wise witch who's just like, I've got all the answers and I know
who can't seem to stand up.
Yeah, she just has
to lying on her side. Yeah, she's
and then, like even when the guy's like, "Well, so we're just supposed to believe her," and it's just like, "Well, we want to keep this fucking train going, so yes, we're just going to believe her." But any time this movie is in a forest, you're just like, "Oh yeah, this is the guy who shot Predator." If you want a forest or a fucking jungle shot, get in John McTiernan. Absolutely gorgeous. So I'll go with one of the shots in the forest just because they're so beautifully shot.
I was thinking, speaking of beautifully shot, I was thinking of the fireworm coming down.
Yeah,
I thought that looked great. But I'm going because I mentioned it enough times anyway. Bolvai's last stand and the warrior's prayer.
Yeah,
his final stand to me is unforgettable. It captures the film's entire spirit in one quiet, powerful moment. He's poisoned, he's fading, he steps out to face the Wendell with the calm certainty of a man who refuses to let death dictate the terms. And the prayer, he reciting it, it becomes emotional center of the scene. He's steady, dignified acceptance of fate that transforms his final moments into something ceremonial. I really thought about this, by the way.
Yeah, clearly so.
And then the warriors
and I'm just like, I just think he shoots people in trees pretty well.
The warriors join in, their voices turning the ritual into a collective act of honor. And the moment shifts from a battle to a cultural heartbeat. It kind of lingers because it shows the courage, not as the rage or bravado, but as clarity, unity, and purpose. I mean,
very eloquent, sir.
Yeah.
See, and all that is true, but I can't get over the fact that it's all shot in slow motion. That's my big issue with the end of this film.
And the battle, I get it. The battle in between, slow motion. But that thing when he's coming out and they're doing the Warrior's Prayer, I think it's fucking. It really got to me. Yeah,
it is pretty cool.
I do love a speech, though. I do love a rousing, speech to get everyone going.
Well, it's arguably needed because there isn't much of that in the film. Like most of the kind of narrative and like don't get me wrong, because things keep happening, it is narratively propulsive because you just keep moving from thing to thing to thing. But in terms of like world building, the closest you get is, and he is quite good, the old guy with one eye who comes in and again, we're just like, well, we need someone to explain the situation and why everyone's scared. So we'll just get this rambling old dude to go in and explain it to everyone. And then later on, we'll get an old woman in the woods laying on her side to do the second bit. It's like, well, this is how we're delivering the narrative, I guess. It's absolutely ludicrous. But as I said, if nothing else, this film is propulsive. Oscar season, this is where we hand out 3 Oscars and 3 Razzies in categories of our choosing. The Oscar for Best Language Transition in Cinema History goes to The 13th Warrior. I know you're going to disagree with me on that. The Oscar for Best Leading Man, who isn't actually the leading man, goes to Vladimir Kulik as Bolvai. Doesn't get enough screen time, but when you have to care and you have to see him as the leading man, as you so eloquently put it just a moment ago, it absolutely works. And the Oscar for Best Warrior, who supposedly isn't a warrior, goes to Ibn. Forges and grinds his own sword, clearly very skilled. He's just a poet. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah. Well, actually, that perfectly goes into mine then. So the Oscar for Best Accidental Hero goes to Ahmed Ibn Fadlan. He arrives as a poet, he leaves as a sword swinging legend. He
Mhm.
learns Old Norse through sheer exposure and passive aggressive listening. He's the only man in cinema to become a warrior through linguistic immersion.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. Pretty much.
Uh, the award for the best Viking who refuses to die, Bulvi. He's poisoned, he still fights. He's bleeding out, he still fights. He's probably dead, he still fights.
It's
He treats
badass.
mortality like an optional side quest.
Mhm.
He's gonna keep going till he can't.
Looks great in
And
that.
fine,
Looks great in that armor as well, which supposedly was all
yeah.
real and super heavy, but looked the part for sure.
And finally, the Oscar for the best horror creatures who might be bears but also might be people, the Wendell.
Mhm.
Furry, smoky, bone-wearing nightmare fuel. They attack like a cross between a stampede and a Black Friday sale. Their whole vibe is what if Neanderthals had a marketing department?
Yeah, it really is just lacking because you like the closest you get to something like Bone Tomahawk. And for those who haven't seen it, there is nothing quite like what
No.
happens at the end of Bone or Tomahawk. I mean, legitimately one of the most violent things I've ever seen on a cinema screen. The bit when they come in and basically they've got the heads of all their friends and they're in bushes. I was like, all right, that is actually pretty harsh.
Yeah.
It's just a shame because this tiptoes around real horror, but always kind of drags you back out of it. I'm just sometimes just like, especially that sequence, just like go all out. Just make this horrible.
Yeah.
It might or might not be a cannibal lair. Who knows? The Razzie for worst opening shot in an otherwise great looking movie goes to The 13th Warrior. As you said, we think it might have been filmed by Michael Crichton as part of the reshoots. It looks horrible. Do not let that opening shot put you off. Because if I wasn't watching this for a podcast and I turned this on and be like, oh, I have somewhat fond memories of this, and the first thing I saw was that wide shot of Baghdad and the nobleman's wife, I'd be like, maybe I'm going to fucking give this a miss. It's genuinely that ugly. The Razzie for amazing collection of utterly bizarre accents goes to this movie. As you said, beyond the fact that Antonio Banderas is just doing Spanish with a hint of Middle Eastern thrown in, there's Scandinavian.
If Sean Connery can do it, anyone can do it. Just yeah. And I'm a decent actor. I'm an advocate as well for just stick to your own. Don't do accents in films. We understand that you're meant to be this. That's fine. I don't need these kind of accents, especially if you can't do them properly.
Yeah, but there's one thing to like say you take the Valkyrie approach. That's probably the most famous example, the Tom Cruise movie where they're all playing Germans and they just like, listen, we're not going to have everyone doing German accents. Just do your own accent. Just be yourself, and that's fine. But it's different when some people decide to go for an accent, and some people, it's like to take it back to The Hunt for Red October, where it's like Sean Connery's just being Sean Connery, but then Sam Neill doesn't get the fucking memo, and he's like, no, I'm going to be Russian submarine captain. It's like, all right, fucking here we go. It just makes things confusing. It doesn't ruin the film.
I argue that Connery didn't get the memo or got it and just chucked it away because everyone else was doing Russian, and Connery was like, fuck this. I'm done.
Yeah, he's the one who's just like it doesn't matter if he got the memo or not. He's just like, I'm just going to be Sean Connery.
Yeah, Tim Curry rocked up doing Russian. Fucking Sean Connery? No.
No, he just does what he wants. The Razzie for worst choreography in an otherwise great movie goes to this. The only movie I can really think of comparative to this is it's actually Batman Begins. If you go back and watch Batman Begins, and I had an issue with it when it first came out in 2005, which is fucking horrendous that it came out. It's a really good film, but the fight sequences are not well choreographed. They're shot far too close. They're messy. You don't know what's going on. This is a really good movie. It's conceptually brilliant, like the action sequences, the way they set them up. But as soon as people get in and amongst it, it just becomes a mess. And it's such a shame because everything else, it almost feels like, rather than it being like, oh, poor choreography, it feels like a kind of an aesthetic choice by the director, where he's like, oh, I want to film it like this. And it just feels messy. And I never really got a sense of the scale, which is clearly there. Like you mentioned at the start, this film cost, even if you take out, I'd say it cost an extra 50 million because of the delay and because of reshoots. This film was still budgeted at between 85 and 100 million. This is an expensive movie, which, for the most part is up on screen. And you're just like, why do the fucking battle sequences look so clumsy? But it is what it is.
Right, so the Razzie for the worst travel plans goes to Ibn Fadlan's assignment. He's sent away for flirting. He ends up on a Viking quest. It's the most extreme example of take a work trip to clear your head.
Things got out of hand quickly for all Ibn.
Yeah. The Razzie for the most questionable medical advice goes to the witch woman. Diagnoses poison by sniffing. Prescribes heroism as treatment, and she's somehow correct.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, she has to be for the narrative, but yeah, it's pretty dumb.
yeah. And lastly, the Razzie for the least believable stealth goes to the Wendell Cave infiltration. You've got
Yeah,
12 giant Vikings, one poet, all sneaking through a cave like they're in Mission Impossible. Not a single clank, grunt, or beard rustle gives them away.
yeah, all that armor. Like, do you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Ellie in the first Last of Us game,
Yeah.
when so much of that game is about obviously,
Stealth.
kind of
And she's running
stealth.
around in front of them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like so you're behind the wall, and then she's just on the other side of the wall, just in plain sight, and you just have to use game logic and go, "This is fine." This definitely has that kind of movie logic where you're just like, "This makes no sense. There's no way they're not getting caught," but we're just going to allow it. We'll just let it be.
Yeah.
Any alternative titles for this film, other than the fact that it was initially called Eaters of the Dead, in line with Crichton's book, but.
No, to be fair, mate, I'm not going to go through them all. It's 13th Warrior spelt instead of just numbers,
Okay.
or Vikings. That's pretty much it.
Mhm. I can
Spain.
actually see why this is one of those rare examples where the
Sorry, so
change of name. Sorry, go for it.
I was just going to say there are two that are worth mentioning. Spain was the Warrior number 13,
Mhm.
and Taiwan was the Ultimate Surprise. That was pretty much it.
The ultimate
Yeah.
surprise. I was just going to say, like, changing the name from Eaters of the Dead to the 13th Warrior, regardless of whether you keep with his initial vision, I think it does make sense. Obviously, it didn't have any impact on the box
Nobody is
office,
watching
but
a film called The Eaters of the Dead and expecting this.
no, I don't think they are. So, yeah,
No.
I think the 13th Warrior, because it is fundamentally an Antonio Banderas movie, makes a lot more sense. So I am on board with that. Any facts for this film that we haven't already
Yeah.
covered?
So the Vikings' disparate armor can be explained by the Norse tradition of taking the armor of a vanquished foe. It was also a display of status in Norse society. The nicer the armor, the higher the position. Halger appears to have a Roman gladiator's helmet and Heather a scale mail suit, which were popular in Eastern Roman Empire. Furthermore, the Viking warriors who went abroad did not always do so in order to raid. Often they went to seek employment as mercenaries with whatever lord would hire them. This would inevitably lead to the warriors picking up pieces of armor from wherever they were stationed and did their fighting. One such mercenary outfit that earned lasting fame was the Varian Guard of Constantinople, comprising warriors from all over Scandinavia and later from England.
Cool.
Although rumors persist that this was one of the most expensive movie flops ever, with the budget of 160 million, the producers claimed it cost 90 million before marketing. The movie grossed 32 million in the US and 61 million worldwide. So kind of made its money.
Well, that's
maybe?
what I mean. It's that weird thing when you
Yeah.
look at like the biggest box office flops, and when I mentioned like some lists have this as the biggest box office flop, and of course then there's other lists which take inflation into consideration. And we mentioned on previous podcasts, actually a lot of the ones at the top list now, those Disney films, it's Tomorrowland, it's like John Carter and what's called The Lone Ranger. This has like a really big range. So a lot of them be like the cost is 120 to 140. The cost of this ranges wildly on every list. It'll be like, oh, it could be anything from 110 million to 240 million. So that's why some have it as potentially the biggest box office flop. I suspect it wasn't quite there, but needless to say, it lost a shitload of money.
Dennis Storhoy, the joyous, almost drowned during the underwater section. Antonio Banderas jumped into the water and pulled him out of the water and saved his life.
Well, I'm glad he survived because
Yeah.
we've got to mention that when covering the film. That sequence, like the whole idea of like jumping down into a cave to escape when it's filled with water and you don't know how long it is, it's like inherently terrifying. They did not do enough in this film to sell you on the fear and the tension. They're just like, oh, we don't know how long it is. You might drown. They just go under, they start swimming, and they just get out fine. I'm just like, dude, man, you could have done something with that sequence. Everyone's watching it going, oh my God, an underwater cave. That just sounds the worst.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's nothing. They could have even have when the Vandal like attack them, drag one of them back, anything. Even make it just longer. It's like the sense that they're about to drown. But instead, they're just like, oh, that was actually pretty straightforward. Quite a shame, but hey.
Right, I'll leave it here now. I'll do this one and then we'll leave it there.
Cool.
In accordance with the book, John McTiernan's version of the Wendell's mother was an old woman, played by veteran actress Susan Willis. After Michael Crichton took over and did the reshoots, he decided the brutally killing off an old lady did not reflect very well on the heroes. Crichton decided to make her younger, sleeker, and tougher. In the final release, Wendell's mother is played by Kristen Cloak. She's uncredited, but the final credits still list Susan Willis.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
This was such a weird production for this film. How to the Future, this is where we ask a question, remake, sequel, Let It Die, Live Well Alone. I think it's Leave Well Alone. Like, don't get me wrong. somebody is going to remake Beowulf again. You're never too far away from a kind of Beowulf or Beowulf adjacent remake, but a direct remake with Ibn and the Vikings and stuff. It's like, no, you don't need that. And the thing is, you really don't need it because this film, for the most part, still looks really good. If you watch it on Disney Plus, it's in HD. It's a good looking film. It's not like you watch this and go, oh, this looks like an old film. It has problems, but for the most part, it's completely watchable today. So yeah, just leave well alone.
So this is a weird one, right? Because yes, I enjoyed this film. I enjoyed the rewatch, but I'd be all right if you let it die. Like if it just disappeared into the ether, fine, whatever. If it never came back, fine, whatever. So I would probably just say, yeah, just let it die. Just let it just go out on its own, I think.
So I feel a little bit warm to it. I, like, let it die always feels like a certain negative connotation. So when I say leave well alone, I'm just like, yeah, it doesn't need to be a remake. It just exists. Just watch the 13th Warrior. But hey ho. In terms of making a change, so if you could only make one change to make this movie better, for me, obviously you could pick a whole bunch of things with this film, but it really is the choreography. We've talked about it a bunch of times. You could make an argument for character development and story development, all these other things. But I just think it's a shame that the battles, which are structured and set up in such an exceptional way, just don't deliver in a way that they should.
For me, if you were going to make one change, just fix the ending. What's his name again? Bullvi. Bullvi's final stand is iconic, but the aftermath is abrupt. Ahmed's final farewell feels like he's catching the last bus home. It hints at cultural exchange, but never lets it land.
Does.
Yeah,
it totally does.
Yeah,
it's just him on his own. Yeah, what is it with these films? We have the same issue with Waterworld, where you have this big setup, and he's just like, I'm just going to bounce, and everyone's like, all right, catch you later. It's like, fucking, shouldn't there be more of like fanfare here? Ridiculous.
Let Ahmed reflect on how he went from court poet to Viking hype man. Give the Vikings a moment to mourn their king instead of stoic shrugging their way into the credits.
Listen, we could say it like you could almost sneak in just a smidge of character development there, just a sense of progression, but instead they're just like, bye. It's like credits. All right, fair enough. Video games, unsurprisingly, there wasn't a video game based on the 13th Warrior. I suspect that had a lot to do with the box office. If you're going to make one today, the obvious answer is probably Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but I'd actually go for 2008's Viking Battle of Asgard. It was published by Sega and developed by Creative Assembly, and it was massively underrated. If you go back and play it now, I watched a few videos. It looks like an early 360 game. It has that weird bloom about it. Everything's slightly brown. But I remember at the time being like, why did this get such middling reviews? Like the structure was cool, like certain areas, like kind of semi-open areas, and you would, kind of get into these like scuffles and story-based situations. But then once you kind of built up enough support, you would have large-scale battles for that region. So it'd just be you and hundreds of other NPCs all attacking like one of the strongholds. And I know some people saw it as like quite repetitive. I thought it was like cool, and there was nothing else quite like it. So if there was a chance to bring that back, I'd be all for it. Like I'd love a kind of full HD remaster and just call it the 13th Warrior Edition. It's not happening, but it's something a bit more interesting than me just lazily saying Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which of course would also work because beyond being far too fucking long, that game is really good. That game is so long. Have you played Valhalla?
Yeah, it's long, yeah.
There's no way you finished it. There's no way.
No, I didn't. No.
No.
Sometimes I need you to stop talking with things like that because you just went into, instead of you saying lazily picked it's fucking Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
No. I was looking for something different, and it was only because I was thinking Vikings. I was like, God, what was that game I played? And I just had fond memories of it. The correct answer is Valhalla. You're 100%.
Yeah. I mean, you got a protagonist who learns a new culture by being thrown into the deep end. You've got it works. Unfortunately, it just works. Yeah. And you could Ahmed would absolutely be a DLC character.
Yeah, and you could actually borderline pull it off with this game because the way this movie is structured, it feels like DLC. It's so devoid of progression and additional scale. They are just like, Assassin's Creed Valhalla 13th Warrior DLC totally makes sense. If this film had been a success, you could totally imagine it happening because I didn't want to just call him Ibn, but then do I want to go for the full Ahmed Ibn Falhalan Ibn Al-Abbas Ibn Rashid? Because he's a real-life historical character, that makes even more sense. Yeah. And it's based on the story of Beowulf. I'm like, there is a world where this film was a success and there was genuine 13th Warrior DLC for Valhalla. I actually bought, because it was on sale, I bought the DLC pack for Valhalla, like, where you get like, I
Yeah.
think it was like 4 separate bits of DLC. And I was like, dude, you didn't even bother finishing the main game. And I played it like most games. I'm like, I'll hit like a certain limit and be like, I can't play this game anymore. That game was so good that I played it, I'd say, for like 40, 50 hours. And I was like, all right, I've got to be near the end. I checked, I was like just over halfway through. I was like, fuck this. Like, that's it. I'm not playing another 50 hours there, so I'd call it a day. But who knows? If there'd been 13th Warrior DLC, maybe I would have stuck with it. But you are right. That is the correct answer.
Yeah.
What was I going to look at? IMDb. So this is where we pick a random 10-star and 1-star review for this film. But before we do that, I have a guess at how many written reviews there are. I just think it's low because I know it's famous for being a box office
Pointing
bomb.
up. Pointing up.
Really?
It's not low. Yeah. I'll give you a hint. It's not low.
Over 300?
Fucking yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. It's bizarre. Some of the, I don't know, 482.
Over 400? Yeah. Over 500? Yeah. Over 600? Yeah. 656.
Jesus
Written
Christ.
reviews.
I know this is like a cult movie, but you think about like some of the movies we've covered where there's had like 150 written reviews, and then the 13th Warrior gets over 600. That's absolutely insane. I see now. I feel like I'm pissing in the wind now in terms of 10-star and 1-star reviews. In terms of 10-star reviews, I feel like a lot of people will like it, but out of 600, 47,
104.
Wowzers, man.
Yeah.
Wowzers. I know, like, when we say cult movie, it's not one of those cult movies where people say, oh, it's shit, but I like it. A lot of people genuinely like this film.
Yeah.
Clearly,
So, titled Among My All-Time Favorites. I have as much esteem for the 13th Warrior as I do Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, settle down, buddy.
Both are among my all-time favorite films. I recently bought it on iTunes and saw it again and was again incredibly impressed. There are a number of things about this film that just resonate with me, much of which I can't explain. To me, it strikes a very deep chord relating to the courage, honor, faith, and camaraderie. Fuck me, I couldn't say that because he spelled it wrong. Clearly, this film cannot resonate in such a way with everyone, but it did for me. It's definitely a guy's film. My wife has zero interest in movies like this, but that's cool. The film has a substantial creepy factor, but it's pivotal to the storyline and setting up the backdrop of fear and uncertainty. Being based on an excellent novel by Michael Crichton, the storyline is very gripping. The acting, directing, and camera work are also excellent across the board.
Yeah, I mean, I think he got a little bit carried away. I think he's got a little behind his own supply, saying this belongs in the same category as Saving Private Ryan. I don't think it's a 10-star film by any stretch of the imagination, but as I said at the start, this is much closer to Predator than it is to Rollerball.
He was basically, I like this film, but it's okay. I have a wife, so I'm not just in it. Like, I have a wife, it's okay.
I don't know when you started saying that then. We went a little bit Borat. I have a wife.
I have a wife.
All right, so if there's over 100 10-star reviews, which is crazy, I just can't see that many people giving this 1 star. It's quite low, yeah?
It is low, yeah.
26.
Oh, dude, 21.
No, that's not too far off.
No.
I mean, in fairness, I was fucking miles off with the other numbers, so I'll take this little victory.
Titled Boring Crap.
Oh, there we go. To the point.
I love sword fight movies. I love Viking movies. I think Antonio Banderas rocks, and John McTiernan's Die Hard stands as one of the greatest movies of all time. But the 13th Warrior sucks. It's so boring. My wife fell asleep. You can't see anything, but when there is enough light to see, there's nothing to see anyway. There's not a single shot that impresses the eye, no sweeping vistas or elegant lighting. Hell, not even cool swordplay. This looks like a bunch of high school students with a camera. There's absolutely nothing to remember. There's not even bad highlights, stuff that's just so terrible it stands out. Not even that. I have no idea why this movie was made.
Well, all we can take definitively from these 2 reviews is that chicks hate this film. Chicks fucking hate the 13th Warrior. I think that's a little harsh. I was closer to the 10-star review than I am to the 1-star review, to say the least. Which brings to our own scores and recommendations. This one's pretty easy for me. It's a 3 and a yes. I would genuinely recommend this to people because I think it's held up really well. There are a few too many problems with the aforementioned choreography, with the tonal inconsistencies, with the rushed narrative, but there's still a really good. It's almost annoying because I think there's like I'm not going to go as far as to get a 5-star film, but there's a genuine it's close. You can see the 4-star movie in there, but it settles into a 3-star. But comfortable giving this a 3 and a yes.
100% it's a 3 and a yes.
Yeah, it really is.
There's so much more that could be done to make this such a great film.
Mm-hmm.
but it's still a good film. And yes, it's really worth watching. Thinking about it now, maybe my Let It Die was a bit wrong, so I'm going to change that to Leave It Alone. But yeah, it's a 3 in the S, and I would recommend watching this
it's
film.
just
Yeah,
annoying because all the issues with this film, they feel like they could have been avoided. Like, this is they're not like fundamental issues. You're just like, man, the good film was right there. Like, like I said, sorry, this is already a good film. The great film was right there. It was within touching distance. I'm still not convinced if that movie got made, it would have been a box office hit. I think they'd really kind of stretched the budget. And like this film, like, it made 60 million. That actually feels about right. Like why they couldn't have figured out how to make this film for like 30, 40 million is quite beyond me. But it feels like that's what it should have been. Like, kind of aiming for like somewhere between 60 and 100 million box office. But hey, it is what it is. But yeah, despite its reputation, this is a really solid movie with despite the aforementioned faults. So yeah, that's been 1999's The 13th Warrior. Next week, the final part in our box office bomb season, and it's your choice, sir. What are you going for?
so I was so impressed when you brought it up. You've already brought it up in this film, in this podcast.
It has to be Hard Rain then.
It's Hard Rain.
which is a weird one because I think a lot of people would be like, Hard Rain lost a lot of money, dude. Hard Rain lost a lot of money. So
budget 70 million, domestic gross 19 million. It returned roughly 0.28 times its budget.
Yeah, it's pretty bad because I know when you hear that, you don't do the maths. It's like that'll be the production budget rather than the full budget, which includes marketing and everything else. So that probably would have cost well in advance of 100 million. So to make back what, under 20, did you say?
Under 20, yeah.
And the thing is as well, and I think it'd be the same with this to a certain extent, but certainly with Hard Rain, this isn't like a Waterworld situation where like, I didn't do amazing at the box office, but then, it fucking did gangbusters on DVD and Blu-ray. Yeah. Hard Rain didn't have a long tail. Like, you weren't like, oh, dude, you caught Hard Rain on DVD or VHS, right? You'd be like, no, other than me and you, the answer would have been, no, I did not.
That's the problem. I was the one going, have you got Hard Rain? Have you got, like,
and I was like, what the fuck is Hard Rain?
I thoroughly enjoyed. Now I will add the ED at the end of that. I thoroughly enjoyed this film.
See, this is another interesting one because it's similar to this, where I have vague recollection of just enjoying it. I saw it so long ago, it didn't leave a massive impact on me, to say the least. I remember it being fine, but I am looking forward to revisit. Who directs? Sorry, because we went straight to it. Who directed it? We already know who was the choreographer, the cinematographer for the film, but we don't know who the director is.
Mikhail Salomon.
Ah, that did not help.
No.
Do we know any of his other works?
I mean, it was written by Graham Yost, who has now given us... I can't remember the latest thing he's given us, but Graham Yost was Justified with Timothy Olyphant.
Yeah.
But
cool.
what's he done lately? He's done something... Oh, he wrote Speed as well. Slow Horses. This dude gave us Slow Horses. I fucking love Slow Horses.
Well, see,
Solomon gave us cinematographer of The Abyss.
Oh, nice.
Director of a bunch of Band of Brothers episodes. Director of a bunch of The Expanse episodes. Has he given us anything film-wise that we know of?
Movie-wise. Well, what we're going to end up having next week is another conversation similar to this week with Banderas. Did this end their careers as a kind of, legitimate leading man? I think we'll have the same conversation next week, between this and I know it was a bigger hit, but Broken Arrow didn't exactly set the box office alight.
Like, I was a big, like, Christian Slater back then in these films, a big fan of him. Unfortunately, the reason why you don't know anything from this guy is because this is his one and only feature.
Oh, really?
Is just basically, he's done this, and then he is just a TV guy. Movies,
that's
TV
the thing.
Miniseries, TV guy, yeah.
We've talked about this before with like leading men. It's like, this was your shot. And obviously Christian Slater had been a pretty big deal for a long time, but I feel like towards the mid to late 90s, around this time actually, they were just like, all right, he's had his time. He's had a few too many box office bombs. He's not going to be a leading man. If anything, he actually really fell off the map for a few years. But it does happen with directors. This sounds like a very extreme example where, you get your shot, they give you some money, it doesn't work out, and then you're in director jail. Sounds like he never got out of director jail and just went straight to TV and never got a chance. Yeah. Or maybe he had a bad example, a bad experience, sorry. We'll find out next week when we do the research.
Hey, Drake is in this as well. I completely forgot Drake was in this film. Drake from Aliens. Mark Rolson.
I thought you meant Drake the rapper. I was like, how fucking old is that? How bizarre. I should have known it was Drake from Aliens. I'm talking to you. Yeah, I really can't remember much of this film. It is who's the other supporting? Well, I'm not sure if supporting actor. It's Morgan Freeman, right?
Morgan Freeman, Minnie Driver, Randy Quaid.
Minnie
Yeah.
Driver. Oh, there's an interesting cast.
Big fan of Minnie Driver in this film, and no, not just because she's constantly wet. Actually, that sounded gross. That sounded really gross.
That's what we're going to end on now. We're going to finish the podcast now. It's absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, it is what it is. You listen to Hey You Guys podcast. This happens on occasion. So you've been listening to 1999's The 13th Warrior. Please do join us next week for 1996's Hard Rain. 1998's Hard Rain. My apologies. Anything else to add before we wrap this up?
Wet.
Oh, for fuck's sake, dude. I've been Liam. He's been Rob, obviously. And you've been listening to the Hey Guys podcast. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Oh, and before I forget, where can folk reach us if they were so inclined to?
Well, you can actually reach us on Hey You Guys 80s at Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. But if you want to send us a mail, do heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Send us in your recommendations. Send us in your thoughts about any of the episodes. Just literally talk to us. We'll have a one-sided talk with you on the podcast.
Yeah. We're nice folk. Get in touch. But no, cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Hey, you guys!